Another bright new week, 3 more discussion topics selected by you, a whole new conversation. Welcome back to 360 Speed. Welcome back to 360 Speedway HQ. Make yourselves comfortable, settle yourselves in for another episode of terrific Speedway chat. That's the billing. I'm sure a few laughs along the way too. Another new week, a whole new conversation. Time to introduce, without further ado, this week's lineup. So let me do that right now. First up, returning to the 360 hot seat. He's been a rider, he's been a team manager, he's even won a few things along the way. The rinky-dink panther himself, welcome back, Carol Johnson.
Evening, Derek. Evening, 360ers.
Thank you, Carol. Next up and back for more, it's Lord Nelson's mate. Hey up, Nigel Crabtree.
Hey up, Derek. Hey up, everybody.
That gave us a bit of a laugh last week, Nigel. Thanks for playing along. And finally, stepping straight back into the 360 hot seat, back-to-back appearances for our very own Big Mac, Stewart McDonald.
Evening all, hope you're all well.
Collectively, this week's Handlebar Heroes. Usual disclaimer applies. All of the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of ours as individuals and not at all representative of any clubs or associations that we have had or currently do have. So there we are. Get that off my chest. Right, gents, listen, thank you very much for stepping back into the breach. Another fun chat episode that lays ahead, I hope. And let's get into it now. So first things first, no special guest this week. We're not going to have an interview this particular week. I didn't promise we would do that diligently every single week. We will return to it moving forward. We'll look to reinstate that possibly again next week. But one thing I did want to do is give a little bit of focus on the championship and the Premiership standing. So we're in the thick of the action. We'll talk about each of those divisions respectively, and give a little bit of focus on the forum books and the current league position. So let's start. I'm going to call this, as you can see, Ship Shape Spotlight, because we're going to talk about the Premiership and the Championship. Do you see what I did there? That was a revelation when I was planning tonight's episode. So let's start dutifully in the top flight with the Premiership. So the Premiership, gents, as you know, have a 2 home, 2 away format. In terms of the current league table, that tells us in terms of meetings or matches ridden so far, we're probably in lap 3, I think, in the Premiership. A little bit to go yet, but beginning to settle into some sort of semblance of a position. The top 4, of course, are the breakaway top 4 who will fight it out for the league title itself come the playoff time. So just looking at the league table, and apologies if the numbers are just a little bit small to see, but Bellevue, Ipswich, Sheffield, Leicester appear to be clear of the chasing pack. Carol Johnson, I'm going to bring you in. Anything I've said so far that you think is controversial or you might disagree with?
No, I think looking at the table and the form of teams, I think that top 4 at the minute are cemented themselves in there, and it's obviously up to, I think, Kings Lynn and Oxford. They're the only ones really with an outside chance. Obviously, Birmingham are really struggling, but yeah, that top 4 look very strong. They're very strong on their home track, so it looks like it's going to be very difficult for anybody else to sort of fight their way in there, I think. But obviously Bellevue are the class act at the minute, aren't they?
Entirely agree, Carol. Nigel, just to bring you in, as Carol's mentioned, I think, in fairness, Oxford fans, Birmingham fans, please forgive me, but I would suggest that neither of your sides are going to remotely trouble the top 4. lost far too many meetings at home, never mind anything else. Kings Lynn, I think, mathematically still have a outside chance of leapfrogging probably Leicester. Nigel, I would suggest, though, Kings Lynn and Leicester have made it all the way through to the Knockout Cup final, and that's probably, I would suggest, likely to be both clubs' best chance of success this season.
Well, I think it's good that Kings Lynn have got to the final. It's a different club, isn't it? Plenty to race for Kings Lynn still. Keep up form and everything. Yeah, as you say, the top four have more or less picked themselves. Somebody's to have a drastic loss of form for Kings Lynn to qualify for the playoff. But who's going to win the playoffs? You know, you say Bellevue have been the outstanding team. They've had the problems on the travels, haven't they? They are very good round Bellevue. That's their saving grace. But, you know, I wouldn't like to say who's going to win of those top four. That's what makes it good. That's what makes the playoffs good. You know, where you're going to lay your money. Kings Lynn won Bellevue fairly close the other night. A few days ago, whatever. You know, to run them 8 to 10 points. Well, if the playoffs can run Bellevue to 8, 10 points at home, Bellevue doesn't mean to say they're going to win win their overall when they go away. They've had the problems. I think they've had a bit of good hiding at Ipswich, if I remember right. They had a bit of a good hiding at Leicester, I think, a few weeks ago.
They did.
So, yeah, I think the playoffs will be very interesting at the end. The top four seem pretty even, I think.
I think it's very open, Nigel. To your point, I think it's very open. Going back to the Knockout Cup final, I think it's really refreshing that the Knockout Cup final is going to be competed between Leicester and Kings Lynn. So none of the so-called top three teams are going to feature in that particular shake-up. Stuart, we all have different opinions, I think, and I know supporters do, of the playoff format versus the traditional league championship format. Do you subscribe, Stuart, to the suggestion that pre-playoff, whoever it is, whichever team did finish at the top of the regular season league table ought to win something, not to be accredited with something like a Premiership Shield trophy or something like that?
Absolutely, Derek. I mean, I think we actually had the chat with Carol, when you had a few years ago, Carl, when they got all the way to the final, the best team in the league all year, and then they get pipped at the final. And you know what? It's devastating. It's like you say, you should have some sort of accolade, some sort of award. But it's difficult. You look at the top four there, Derek, and yes, they're cemented there, but, anything can happen with injuries, weather conditions.
Yes.
There's so many factors now when you look at what's ahead with the weather challenges, and injuries. And, at the start of the season, I think I had tipped Kings Lynn to get quite close because they looked sharp, they were out the traps. And as the seasons went on, my favourite at the moment, I think, on form has got to be Ipswich. I think Ipswich, the way that they seem to be going home and away, they're on fire just now. You look at their stats and the scores, the points scored, points against, and with their match in hand, they could go obviously top of the table on the points difference as well. But I do think that come the end of the playoffs, the team, I mean, if it's Bellevue and Ipswich, Bellevue and Kings Lynn, Bellevue and Leicester, whoever's going to be in it, you would expect the team that's been so consistent all year to win the final. And like you said, it would be devastating for the team that's been at the top all year to get there and not get any sort of reward for it. And it's unfortunate that's just the way the sport is in the playoff situation compared to the old format.
Carol, all the teams agree to and know the rules at the start of the season. That's undoubted. We're not going to dispute that. But would you subscribe to the notion, Carol, that over the course of the regular season, where obviously riders, team managers, promotions are doing their damnedest to win meetings and get to the top of the table, there should be some reward for that. Would you agree with me?
Oh, 100%. We like the playoffs. It draws the season out longer, and there's a little bit more to play for. Obviously, with the Premiership, the three teams that are going to miss out, a lot of the meetings at the end of the season are sort of nothing meetings for them. But once you get into that playoffs, yeah, it's good. But 2018 always sticks in my mind. We was top of the league. We won the league by a country mile. We got into the playoffs. We had massive injuries, and it cost us our league title, and we got nothing for it. You know, we didn't get a trophy for finishing top of the league. You know, and I think there should be a league trophy. If you finish top, you should be you should have something for that. And then, you know, you have the playoffs. I don't know how or what way you do it, how you get around it, but you know, you put in all that effort for the whole season.
Yeah.
And it's a long season. It's a tough season. The championship, you know, in 2018 and even now was hard. It was, you know, it was the toughest league by a long way. And to finish top of the league took a monumental effort from everyone involved. And you know, to get nothing for it because you've picked up injuries, you know, it really sort of deflated us a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and really that should have been the year that we won the league. Obviously we won the fours that year as well, but you know, we should have done the double league and fours. Should have been hard really, but yeah, we all know what Speedway's like. We all know injuries affect teams, but yeah, it hurt us big time, you know, massively. Towards the end of the season, it's like we in the playoffs, we got, you know, we've had to turn up with riders that have never raced championship level speedway in a playoff final.
Yeah,
it's just it's not right. It's not the way to do it. But what do? We had to accept it, and that's how it is.
It all feels a bit cruel. And Nigel, you know, that would be an easy fix. Surely it would be an easy fix. That the winners of the playoffs are the league champions, but whoever tops the league at the end of the regular season, pre the playoffs, should get some trophy or some recognition for that. That's an easy fix, Nigel, right?
Are you not going to take a bit of the, I don't know what the word would be, a bit of the credit away at the end of the season? If somebody, you know, if Peterborough's picking a trophy but they don't win the one at the playoffs, are you not losing a little bit of its appeal by doing that? I know what you're all saying is right, you know, you've earned something. But I don't know. Can you not lose a little bit of the appeal for the playoffs if you're not careful?
I just think of it as being a different trophy. It's not you're not league champions, but you are the Premiership trophy winners or something. Some sort of consolation for your efforts. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, Derek. Yeah. And I understand Carl about the injury situation. Look at it this last year. You know, they lost Emil, didn't they? And, you know, they had problems. I think Doyley, did they lose Doyley as well? I can't remember last year. Poor old Doyley, he seems to always be on the receiving end. But, hey, when we start the season, everybody knows the score.
True.
And that's what we've got to live with, isn't it? I don't know as it would make a great deal of difference, would it? I suppose it might do to the old supporters. And at the end of the day, it's the supporters we have to keep happy. And if they voted for something like that, well, then they should go with it.
Well, here's another thing, Stuart McDonald, right? So not only does the team that finished top of the Premiership not win anything, not awarded anything, but questionably, do they have any advantage at all when it comes to the playoffs? Because in the Premiership, the team that finishes first is automatically placed in the semi-final against a team that finishes fourth. Now you might think that that's all the advantage in the world, but that team, you know, if the top team had a choice in it, had a say in it, they might have preferred to have picked second or third place teams for the semi-final. So again, is that a further insult to injury, Stuart?
It is a little bit. I think that, in all fairness, the team that do finish top should get choice. Obviously, they've got different teams hitting different types of form at parts of the season. And like Carl said, you can go all the way to the semis, the final, and get injuries. and that can completely scupper the match and the chances of winning a trophy. But I think the way that it works just now, first versus fourth, second, give them first choice, and that way it's settled, because they've earned the right by winning all their matches or winning what they've done to get to the top of the league. And to talk about that sort of earlier point, Derek, one thing that I'll never forget with the teams that I've rode for, I've been fortunate enough to win a couple of league titles and cups, but see, standing up in front of the fans with that trophy, it's the most exhilarating experience you can ever get. Mm-hmm. Nigel's experienced it, and obviously Carl in different ways, but to have that sort of feeling when you're lifting a trophy for the team that's finished top of the league in front of the fans and having that celebration, I think that should happen, as well as getting the other part of it when you go into the finals. I think that that is an amazing part of your life when you lift a trophy, where you're standing there with the fans celebrating.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the BSP or whoever it is that would organise it should look at.
100%.
Because I definitely think for the fan situation, the riders as well, you feel 10 foot tall when you're standing there with the fans. The riders won a league cup, won a cup final, whatever, and I just think that it would definitely merit a reward.
Carol, with your team manager's hat on, let's have just a quick eyeball at the current top four sides. If you were the team manager of Bellevue, let's start with them. What would you be looking and hoping for over the remaining fixtures? To Nigel's point earlier, Bellevue pretty dominant at home. The NSS is a bit of a fortress, but away from home, Bellevue have had questions to answer once or twice.
Yeah, I think, obviously with Dan and Brady being involved in the Grand Prix and doing, certainly Brady doing what he's doing, and that might take their mind off of league racing for a little while. But yeah, I think with them, I think they're going to be, they're always strong. Mark puts a good side together every season, and come the end of the season, they'll be firing. It looks like Sheffield could be the ones that jump to the top of the table. Now, if it was me as team manager and that's how the league finished, okay, you look at Leicester and go, if it's top v fourth, yeah, Leicester, I'd quite fancy Leicester, but I wouldn't fancy Ipswich. Certainly not with Doyle and Emil, and and the way their track is. It's very tough to go to Ipswich. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's hard up the top there because you look at Sheffield. Sheffield is so strong as a team and all the way through. Not just their top two riders, but all the way through now. And I think out of them, the ones I'd fancy was to take on is Leicester, even though they are strong. I think they're the ones that will struggle away from home.
Yep. So I think the golden rule within the Premiership and the Championship, of course, at this stage of the season, is to try and avoid injuries, try and keep the form going, because I'm sure you'll appreciate, Carl and Stuart, if you lose any form, sometimes it's difficult to recover it just in time for the playoffs. And of course, Leicester in particular, they'll still be keen to try and get Luke Becker back into the side if that's at all possible, and just to stay injury free for all sides. Let's flip over, if you don't mind, into the Championship. So let me just bring it on the screen if I can. Championship league table. So if the Premiership is deemed to be on lap 3 at the moment, I would suggest, given the matches ridden versus the target totals in the Championship, that they're probably still finishing off lap 2. I think there's only 3 sides who are currently past the halfway mark in terms of fixtures completed, and a bit of an imbalance. But for that reason, Workington have only completed three league matches, and here we are at the end of July, whereas Poole have completed 10. So a big imbalance apparently in the Championship. But once again, the usual suspects perhaps are up in the top reaches. Poole appear to be destined for another playoff title defence. Glasgow are doing all right at this stage of the season. They want to keep that going. They've had a couple of away wins already under their belts. Edinburgh, possibly, in my opinion, if it's not too controversial, punching above their weight. Albeit it's early season, but credit to Edinburgh. They sit 1 point behind Glasgow currently, Welcome back, Nigel. Scunthorpe, Oxford have lost a couple of meetings at home, so they might be vulnerable when the fixtures begin to catch up and level out a little bit. So looking down the table, my own personal view is that Workington and Redcar are the likeliest teams to climb up the championship table and threaten a top 4 position. Stuart McDonald, I know you'll keep an eye on the championship as well. What's your assessment of respective team strengths, and does that league position currently sort of belie the reality?
Well, I think, like you say, Derek, the fact that you've got teams in there like Workington who's only ridden 3 matches, I mean, that's less than a third of what Pool's ridden. And obviously Redcar as well, they're only in 6. There's, like you say, there's a big imbalance here. You know, there's no consistency with the matches. There's been a lot of issues with the weather, I know. But I think at this stage of the season, when you look at Pool, you know, in Glasgow, they're just stretching away, aren't they? They're flying, they really are. Pool, you'd expect them to be up there every year. You know, they just seem to have that Midas touch, don't they? Wherever they seem to be, what league they're in, they always seem to build this team that seem to get them to the summit most of the year. And I think we've all seen Glasgow in the last sort of 4 or 5 matches away from home coming away with wins.
Yeah.
So, you know, the way it looks at the moment, I think it does look like a 2-horse race. You know, I know you've got Workington, you've got Redcar, who can climb, and you know you've got Ipswich, you've got even Oxford that could come into a bit of form. But I think when you look at what Pool have done and Glasgow have done since the start of the season, you know, pending the weather issues they've had, I think they two are going to be clear at the top of the league. It's a little bit sad because, you know, we look at the top 4 in the Premiership and it's a lot closer, but you look at, you know, the sort of top 4, top 6, and there's a big gulf between Pool, albeit they've ridden less matches. But I think the form that Pool and Glasgow's on, there's very few people that will stand in their way. Again, injuries will play a massive part.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think they two are going to stretch their legs a little bit more.
Nigel, if you're able to hear me, Nigel, Pool always seem to figure in the thick end of every league season, regardless of which division they're in, and you've got to credit them with that. But are there any championship sides, Nigel, that you think might be dark horses this year outside of the teams that Stuart's mentioned, Pool, Glasgow?
Can you hear me, Derek?
Yes, Nigel.
Yeah, I can't see or hear what anybody else is saying at the minute, but you've got to give credit to Pool, haven't you? I don't know what you've been saying, but you've got to give credit to Pool year on year. They seem to keep pulling out the woodwork. I think Workington, possibly not this year, it's too, I don't know. I think they've got a very young team, and given time, I think Workington, if they can keep this team together for next year, I think they've got the basics of a very good team. And it's nice to see the young kids coming through at Workington. Okay, they all aren't British, but such as Bosey, the Tate, Zick, or Zach, or whatever it's called. You know, they're all new lads coming through. And it's good to see them new lads coming up. And I think Workington will do very well. Possibly not this year, but certainly next year. Redcar, they always seem to manage it thereabout, don't they?
Yeah. Carol, I mentioned earlier on when I was giving my sort of overview of the league table, that there's a couple of teams there, Scunthorpe, Oxford in particular, who already have lost a couple of home meetings. How fatal is that likely to be, Carol?
Obviously, it's we went a few home meetings losing, but we had really good away form, so we picked up points on the road. So what we lost at home, we gained away. So at this stage, you know, the matches that they've raced, it's not going to be too detrimental to the standings, as long as, you know, they don't lose too many at home. If the picking points are on the road, then that's obviously a bonus. I looked at, you know, we could gain more points on the road than we could at home at that time. So we focused on, you know, our away form. But I think, yeah, looking at the table, obviously Poole, Glasgow, I think them two are going to be up there. I think Redcar are going to have a good shout at certainly at the in the playoffs, and I think Oxford are probably going to be the ones that sneak in as well. I think Edinburgh, Scunthorpe, I don't think they're strong enough to stay up there, but as we know, Edinburgh is quite a tricky track to go to. Anything can sort of happen there, but they do tend to lose a few, and that would be concerning for them because they're not that good on the road. That would concern them. Scunthorpe, I don't think they're strong enough as a team to make the playoffs. Personally, at the minute they're in the position they are because they've rode more meetings than most.
Yes,
I do think Redcar are going to be the ones that will sneak right up there, and I think Oxford will sneak in there with them. I think they're just them two teams are too strong. I think.
Good assessment, Carol. So I think it's probably too soon, too premature to be calling or commenting too much on the championship, given they're only at lap 2 in my assessment of the season, and lots of laps, lots of meetings still to race. Poole, Glasgow, Edinburgh probably, given their early season efforts, probably merit being in the top 3 currently. And don't tell Ben Barker or Scott Nichols, but I think Plymouth. I can't see Plymouth doing quite enough to climb up into a top 4 position. But listen, we will keep an eye on the Premiership and the Championship as the League Championship races continue in both divisions. If you think that we were a bit cruel, a bit harsh on your team, then as we always invite you to do, please don't hesitate to drop us a comment, drop us a line on YouTube or on social media or on WhatsApp, and share your feelings.